hurt others. His mother went abroad for greener pastures, like many parents do, with the hope of giving their children a better life. Your category is abandonment.
Yeah, sure.
So you were abandoned at the age of 6 months.
She would call me at times, and the only question I would ask her, unakuja lini?
Kamau has lived with the pain of abandonment. Right now, because of COVID, I wouldn't come there to put my hands on you. When is the first time you met your mom?
2013.
How old were you?
17.
That was the first time you saw your mom?
Yeah.
You failed in some units. What did you try to do to mask the pain of failure?
Do more drugs.
So you started smoking weed.
I was bullied in high school.
Why was the bullying happening?
I don't know. They just chose me.
You're feeling lonely even in life because you don't have a sibling, you don't have a brother, you don't have a sister, you don't know your dad, you've never even heard of him. Many of the young adults who are performers, if they mix all those things together and failure is still kicking in and they don't know how to get out, a majority of them will commit suicide.
Attempted.
You attempted suicide. All right. Why didn't it succeed?
I don't know. I prayed to God. I made a prayer before I did it. Luckily, at that moment when I had planned it, somebody was there. I tried twice actually. The first time was pills overdose. It affected my eyes for some time, but I didn't die. The other one was hanging myself. I don't want to carry this pain anymore.
When the war is going on in the mind and we allow ourselves to lose, ultimately we will have to inherit the harvest. Yeah. And you get the harvest all by yourself. So by managing your thoughts, you will manage your words. And ultimately your actions will be controlled. We are a counseling ministry. We offer counseling and inner healing sessions. And today we are here once again with my client Peter Kamau. In our last segment, we dealt with foundational issues. We looked at where he's coming from, his family of origin. We looked at some of the things that could have followed him from the family of origin, which we call foundational issues. You'd also want to call them maybe spiritual heritage. And all those things, they come in two forms. They're the positive ones, they're the negative ones. So the positive ones, we call them generational blessings. And we inherit them. They become a part of our lives. We find ourselves experiencing some goodness that is not as a result of anything we have done. When they come from the negative side, we call them generational curses. So the same mechanism that passes on generational blessings is the same mechanism that passes on generational curses. So in that last segment, we went through all that, and you can go back and watch that episode, and you will see how I was able to lead Kamau in identifying those things that are foundational in nature coming from his family and how to break away from that. So the good thing is that God already provided us with a way out, and that is what we did in our last episode. So today we want to come into the second episode, which is now the healing of inner wounds. This is because right from where we are coming from our foundations, some of the pains that we find ourselves struggling with may have been picked when we were growing up, and they may be as a result of those generational issues. For example, in that first episode, we identified a generational curse of abandonment. So meaning it is very possible that Peter, based on the story that he will give us, he has hinted to me that he was abandoned by his mother when he was 6 months old. So looking at now that story from the aspect of foundational issues, you can already see that the curse of abandonment was already in the family, and he started connecting with it as early as probably when he was in his mother's womb. So now the pain that he has been experiencing, first and foremost, is coming from that generational line. So we have already prayed, broken that. So the pressure that was coming from that direction is over. So today we want to begin picking now the actual pain, starting from wherever the pain began in his life. And most of the times we prefer to go back to when you were 3 years old, and we want to look at that space between 3 to 10 years, because that is where we begin to form an ability to keep a memory record. So the kind of pain that we struggle with most of the times begins from the age of 3 until the age of 10, and it is solidified, and then from that moment on it begins to form a cycle. So you find somebody now going into their teenage carrying the childhood pain, and that pain now begins to also cause them to do some things in their teenage that might even amplify the pain or reintroduce the pain afresh in a different way. And then the person at that time as a teenager, they are now forming an identity. So you can imagine now somebody like Kamau here having been abandoned, and the sum of those beliefs that we form when we go through painful situations, like for example, you may have felt like I'm not good enough, or maybe something is wrong with me. Why did my mom leave me? I'm all alone. So he gets into his teenage with those beliefs already, and he begins to do some things in his teenage season to try to cover or mask the pain, or survival mode, so that he doesn't have to feel the pain of abandonment. And in the process, he might get himself hurt. And he's forming an identity when all that is going on. That is the person he becomes when he gets into the young adult. So you're looking at a young adult who has carried pain from childhood. That pain has shaped him to the person that he is today. So that is what we will be covering today. So I invite you to follow through with us. And everything that I'm talking about is in this particular book. You may have seen it in my first episode. I called it a personal guide for self-help, because you can pick this book and take yourself through what I'm taking Kamau through. That if you don't have somebody to help you with this kind of a session one-on-one, you can buy this book and take yourself through all that I'll be taking Kamau through. So you're most welcome, and I hope you will enjoy and learn something. And if you're wounded over there, my prayer is that you will find your healing. So I want to start with a short prayer, and then I will invite Kamau. He'll begin by telling us much about himself, and we'll begin the session from there. So let's pray together. So Kamau, let's pray. Okay. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity, being able to meet Kamau, knowing that he is a wounded person, and many of us are wounded in this world. But you promised that you're the one who heals the broken hearts, you're the one who binds up their wounds. So I pray that as I walk Kamau through the journey to healing, that you will step in and heal him. The pain in his life is known to you, and only you can heal him. So we surrender this time to you, God. May you come and do that which only you can do. And it is in Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen. So, welcome so much.
Thank you.
I am happy to see you again.
Okay, me too.
And today is your day. So today we want to deal with the pain,
Okay.
because I know it's there. So I want you to tell me once again, because you had hinted to me about how you grew up and what that looked like, how it felt, and then I will get back into this book and I will explain to you some of the things that you may have encountered, because I want you to see them in a way that maybe you have never seen before, so that you begin to understand why you felt the way you did. So tell me a little bit about from the age of maybe 3 when you started knowing yourself.
Yeah.
What can you remember in terms of pain?
In terms of pain, I was a lonely kid.
You were a lonely kid.
Yeah, I was alone. I didn't play when other kids used to play. I would hide myself. Yep.
Okay, you would hide yourself.
Yeah, I would hide myself.
So why would that happen?
I don't know. It just felt like I don't needed to play. I don't know. It just felt like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there was a feeling of I'm different,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
or I'm not like the other kids. So you're like, I don't want to play with them. Maybe you are just hurting because when you're playing, they may have talked about their moms, their dads, and you couldn't. So many times, there are 3 things that can happen, and we'll begin to look at it from this book.
Yeah.
That when you're wounded on the inside, especially when you have absent parents, busy parents, single parents, or you're rejected, or you're experiencing neglect, if you're experiencing any of those things, 3 things can happen. 1, you might find yourself getting angry. Like now you see a kid who is like maybe even 5, 6, or even 4, their friend comes with a toy because their dad came and brought a toy. And this child who doesn't have a father, they're already feeling different, so they become angry. That is the first thing that can happen. They become angry.
Yeah.
So when they become angry, you might find that child picking that toy from the friend and crushing it. So the child is already exhibiting anger, because it's like, why do you have a toy and I don't have? So why are you talking about a dad and I can't talk about a dad? Why are you talking about a mom and I can't talk about a mom? So it manifests in anger very, very early. So you see a child who throws other children's things down, breaks other children's things. They're just angry because they're like, if I can't have it, you can't have it. Another thing is that a child might become like a victim, kind of. These children will become shy, fearful. They feel like it's like they become cold or withdrawn, with self-pity.
Yeah.
So they're looking at the other child who has toys and, they don't even want to touch. So they're just like, they're admiring it from a distance. They don't even want to ask the other child, can I touch your toy? Because they feel they don't deserve it. They have already concluded, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve these good things. So they have accepted it, and that's it. So even if you try to encourage the child to play with the others, they don't feel like they should, because those ones are better. Me, I am different. I'm not. Yeah. Another thing that can happen is a child might begin to want to overcompensate for their lack. So you might see this child now, hana viatu vizuri, they don't have that kind of a toy, but they have something else that they think is better than what the other children have. So they want to blow up whatever it is they have to a level that compensates for what they don't have. So in other words, the child begins to want to overcompensate. Like now you find the child saying, I don't like that kind of a toy. Me, I would prefer a better toy. Even my auntie told me, because maybe they don't have a father or they don't have a mother, my auntie told me they would bring me another toy and it will be bigger than, it's better than that one. I even saw it. So they're trying to elevate themselves so that they don't feel this deficit. So which one of those 3 did you find yourself?
Personally, because I was lucky enough to have like those kind of toys, the good ones, but I would not let other kids touch them. The other thing, I would always brag of how better they are than others. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that is the kind of a child who, when they become teenagers, they become performers. So they believe in doing to achieve self-worth and validation and value. So they continue to do, and they want to excel. They want to just be hyped up somehow to mask their pain. So let me read a few things for you in this book. And then I would want to tell me now what it is that you felt. So I'm reading about where pain comes from. The first source of pain comes from abandonment. And I would want us to talk about that. You had hinted that to me, and I want you to talk about it again. Abandonment comes in different ways. Number one, absent parents. So let me read that where both parents are not present, the child is being raised by a foster parent, relatives, or even in children's homes. So this kind of a child feels abandoned. When other kids talk about their parents, this one cannot because they are absent. The parents are absent. The child can form beliefs about themselves as a result of the pain they are going through. So the beliefs are meant to help them navigate through life because the pain is there constantly. So the beliefs will help them to navigate through life. So they are survival or coping mechanisms. For example, I'm not good enough. So when a child says I'm not good enough, then the need for a mother or a father is gone. Because I don't deserve a mom, I don't deserve a dad, because
I'm not good enough.
Yeah, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
So it helps them feel okay with the situation. Another one is that I am the problem. The same thing. So, it's like if I was a good child, if I was a good kid, if I wasn't the problem, mom would be here, dad would be here. But because I'm bad, that's why they're not here. So again, they can live with it because it's my fault. Yeah. And another one, something is wrong with me. So, and so on and so forth. So those are beliefs that children form so that they can navigate through life with this pain, because the pain is constant. So it's a coping mechanism, it's a survival kind of a thing. So when children are being raised by one parent, so the feeling of abandonment is exactly the same, because when the other children are talking about both parents, this one can only talk about one. So the same feelings. And another one also, which is very common, busy parents. The same thing, that parents are gone, they come home late, they leave very early, and the child is left with a caregiver, a house help, until when they begin to go to school and they interact with the other children, which is around maybe 6 years old. Before then, the child feels abandoned because they are wondering, where did mom go? Where did dad go? Why am I left with this person? Especially if the person they are left with is nasty to them. So the same beliefs begin to form inside of the child. The other one is neglect. If a child is neglected, again between the age of 3 to 10, the neglect itself also makes the child believe that it's because I don't deserve good things. It's because I don't deserve being treated nicely. So they begin to blame themselves for it. A majority of children, when they go through that, they blame themselves because they believe the adults around them are good people. They don't know how to judge the other person at that age. The aspect of judging and blaming comes later. But between this period of 3 to 10, they are not able to judge or even to blame the adults in their lives. So they blame themselves instead. So the other one is rejection. If a child experiences rejection, it's also a form of abandonment. So the same thing happens.
Yeah.
So another source of pain for children is trauma. For example, if a child is raised in a place where there is domestic violence, it leaves a child traumatized because they don't understand why the adults are fighting. Especially if the child did something and the parents argued about that. So the child blames themselves completely for that kind of a fight. And even if a fight happens later that has nothing to do with what the child has done, when they remember that when I did this thing, mom and dad argued. So they will keep remembering that and thinking they are still fighting because of that. So again, they blame themselves. It leaves them traumatized because they believe dad is good, they believe mom is good, so why are the two fighting? So it is very traumatizing for children, okay? So another thing that leaves children with trauma is accidents. If a child experiences an accident, whether they fell from a tree when they were trying to climb as they were playing their games and they broke their arm, or they were hit by something and they saw blood, so those things leaves children very, very traumatized. Or if they see somebody close, maybe a sibling, an uncle, an auntie, or a mom and dad with any kind of blood coming out because something has happened, unless somebody tells the child exactly what this is, they tend to be very traumatized by accidents. Yeah. And another thing that causes trauma in children is death of a loved one. For example, now a child goes to a funeral because maybe an uncle died, or an auntie died, or a close friend, or a neighbor they knew, and they go to the funeral and they see the person being buried, and nobody is explaining to them what this is all about. Many of them will even have nightmares that people are coming to bury them, because now they believe that so and so was buried. The understanding of that the person is not the one being buried, that is just the body. If nobody cares to explain that, the child will keep that memory and the image of how so and so was buried. It leaves them traumatized. Some of them can't even sleep, in the dark from that day moving on. And those kind of things, they scare children. So death of a loved one. Another thing that leaves children traumatized is abuse. For example, physical abuse, where a child is being punished, whether for something they have done or something they have not done, or even if they deserved the punishment, then it was excessive. Another abuse that leaves children wounded is verbal. Words. Yeah. That ondoka hapa, sijui you are like what, you're being insulted. Words. It leaves children traumatized. Why? Because they believe everything that their adult is saying. If you tell a little child that they look like a monkey, they will believe it. And then when they see a monkey, then they begin to imagine that's how they look like,
Yeah.
And that can even make them begin to get afraid of even going in front of people, because they're like,
I look like a monkey.
Look like a monkey, Yeah. How will people look at me? So they become shy, they start hiding. Yeah. So words are very powerful to this group of children. Another one is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse, for example, being compared to others, being ridiculed, being laughed at, being shamed, being bullied, or being exposed to embarrassing situations. Those are things that can crush a child completely, and their image can be completely destroyed, and some children literally lose their self-esteem because of that. So emotional abuse. So there are many types of emotional things that even parents subject their children to without even their knowledge.
Yeah.
And it destroys a child completely. So I'm telling you these things so that you begin to look at what you have gone through. Because during this period of time, we normally have no filter. We don't filter anything. We receive it as it comes. You just download it. You're just downloading it. In teenage, that is when you'll begin to filter a little bit. But in this period of childhood, you pick everything. And that is what forms your core beliefs. Yeah. So at this time in psychology, we call it, that's when you're forming, you're writing something on your schema. A schema is like a mental template. And then you begin to interpret things in life later using that very schema. So you can imagine the things that were being written in your mental template when you didn't have anything else to compare with. You had never lived your life before then.
Yeah.
You are living it for the first time. So these things were coming, you were receiving them as gospel truth. And you internalized them. And they started shaping your beliefs.
Yep.
Those are what is called core beliefs. So there are some things that you do today that are as a result of all that. So the last thing that we look at that causes pain in children between the age of 3 to 10 is excessive rules. Too much control.
Yeah.
That you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, and other children around you are doing it. So the person feels like, again, I'm a bad person, I don't deserve this, and so on and so forth. So the same beliefs begin to crop in because of excessive rules. So I'm sure now you have an idea of the kind of a child you were.
Yep.
All right. Now let me bring out now the kind of a teenager you were likely to become, and you will tell me which of the three you became. So because of all that pain, as the pain kept on growing and you were trying to deal with it and so on and so forth, and beliefs were getting formed, and now you get to the mark where you're now becoming a teenager and you want to begin to explore the world so that you get an identity. Three things could have happened. Number one, you could have resulted in a rebellious teenager. Now, a rebellious teenager is a teenager who is angry, defiant, arrogant. This is a teenager who can be violent, a teenager who even wants to fight. This is a teenager who lives their lives loudly. You will answer back to the adults. You can bang the doors. You can click, and so on and so forth. That's a rebellious teenager. So the teenager is simply trying now to express themselves based on the pain. You see?
Yeah.
So the pain is already there. They have internalized it. And it has shaped them. Even their way of thinking has been shaped by that pain. So now they are coming into the world and they want to explore for an identity. The first category of teenagers with that pain will become rebellious. So they're not rebelling because they hate their parents or they want to be bad. They're just expressing how they feel. Yeah, because that's who they are at the moment. They don't know anything else. The second category is teenagers who become performers. This is a teenager, like we said earlier, who wants to mask their pain. For example, you mentioned you had toys. So you want to keep them to yourself. You want to arrange them nicely. You don't want any other child to touch them. You want them to believe they are the very best toys in the world and they belong to you. So you feel good about yourself. So those teenagers become very excellent in what they do, even academically. Number two, they are very organized. They are dependable. They don't have any problems with anybody. They don't do bad things. They are obedient. They are withdrawn. They have very few friends. They love their privacy. They love their space. But they can get addicted to watching television. Nowadays, they get addicted to internet. Some of them, because they become bookworms, they're very good in reading. So you'll find them with some storybooks. Because they also want to excel, they do their assignments, their school assignments. They're doing their revisions. So they're very, very organized in themselves. But when the aspect of television comes, that can be a form of addiction to them. Internet can also bring addictions to them. If they begin to, for example, get involved in like a pornographic kind of a thing, if they see it once or they like it, they begin to get addicted to pornography. Even in teenage, they get into addictions like even masturbation in teenage. And you will never know that they're struggling. And a few of them at that point, if they can access weed, they will start smoking. Yeah. Seems like you know that one. they will start smoking weed. You see? So that is a performer kind of a teenager. But you will never know that anything is wrong, because in school they're doing well. And because most parents only want to see grades, then when you bring grades,
They're okay with
they're
it.
okay.
Yeah.
But they don't know what else is going on in your life. So that is a performer. So the rebellious one can also try out alcohol as early as teenage. They can try out alcohol. Some of them can try out even sexual stuff as early as that time, teenage. Yeah. So the third category of teenager is called a victim. This is a teenager who feels like the world owes them something. They feel helpless. They feel they have no power in themselves. They have no identity. So they become followers. So whoever they relate with, they become that person. So if the victim teenager becomes friends with a performer, they'll begin to behave like the performer and do the things the performer does.
Yeah.
If the victim relates with a rebellious teenager, they begin to become like the rebellious teenager, and they do those things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they get used, they get abused, they get exploited, and they accept it because they have no identity. Their identity is in who they are relating with. So if you try to tell a teenager to stop keeping company with this rebellious group of, for example, boys, that boy will not do it, because that's what gives them identity. So by themselves, they will not do the things those boys are doing. But they have no identity, and a teenager doesn't want to be without an identity. They would rather have a wrong identity than have no identity. So whatever gives them identity, they hold on to it. Even if it is hurting them. Yeah. Even if it is killing them, they will hold on to it. So they can be used, abused, and exploited. They become people pleasers. They succumb to peer pressure, and they get a lot of wounds. And many of them develop even sicknesses. They have migraines, they have ulcers, they have emotional disorders, because they don't have an ability to say no. They don't know how to say no. So now those are the three types of teenagers that can come out of a childhood pain. And the first pain, we said it was abandonment issues. The second one was trauma issues.
Yeah.
The other one was excessive rules.
Yeah.
So all those things can now result into these three types of teenagers. Now, once you form your identity as a teenager, then you are ready now to become a young adult. And which identity are you carrying on into the young adult? It's the one you have formed in your teenage. So you find out the teenager who was rebellious, when they're getting into their young adult, the first thing they will do is alcohol, sex, partying. They become very rough. They live their lives loudly. They are defiant. They are angry. They are arrogant. You know, these are the young adults who have now experienced a freedom away from home, and they want to extend it to as much as they can. These are the young adults who will come home at 3 in the morning, and they don't want the parents to ask them, where were you? So they feel like, I am now an adult. I'm not a child. And that's what they do. When they are in college, like for example, you were in university, I'm sure you saw some of those guys. They would leave on a Friday evening, they come back on Monday morning.
Yep.
And they have been partying from one place, from one town to the other. They know where the parties are. They do it. They are the rebellious category. So they get into fights and they become sometimes violent. The one who became a performer as a teenager, when they go to the colleges as a young adult, they continue being bookworms. You'll find them in the library. They are so concerned about passing. Every unit they sit for, they want to pass. But because they don't have too many friends, and now they are away from the confine of the home, the rules like they were in high school, now they have some bit of freedom and space. Very easily they'll get addicted to pornography. That is the number one. Because now they are getting bored. You cannot be studying through and through and through. and they don't want to go to that party, the other party. So when they stay within that safe space where they want to be all by themselves or with one or two friends, when boredom kicks in, they get into pornography. Smoking weed comes in very quickly, addicted to masturbation. They can get addicted to food. Yeah, they can get addicted to spending if they have some excess monies. So addictions come very easily for the performers. But the one thing that a performer doesn't know what to do with is failure. So if a performer meets failure, it crushes them completely. They have known how to handle everything. They have what is called self-belief. So they know how to put their things in order. So if they meet failure, and many times failure comes in around that time because of relationships, because you cannot be 100% sure with relationships. Yep. They can do very well in the academic, they can define the direction they want to go, but when they begin to get into relationships, you can never know. And because many times they're emotionally distant, if they meet somebody who needs a lot of their time and somebody who is demanding a lot of their emotional availability, those relationships don't work. And because they so much believe in themselves, if such a thing happens, it breaks them. And that can become now a spiraling kind of a starting point. And they can begin to spiral into depression, and they can begin to fail even academically. And if that happens and they are not able to get out of it, they get into the smoking of weed or even now drugs. And some of them can even drop out of school, and they are very sharp. You know, they are very sharp. They can be unable to concentrate. They can drop out. Yeah, they drop out of very good courses. Somebody is doing law, somebody is doing engineering, and
they drop out.
They drop out. Third year, fourth year, they drop out because now they are struggling. The depression has kicked in. Maybe drugs have come in, and so on and so forth. And if they are not careful, a majority of them can actually commit suicide. That is where many suicide cases can happen. So, because now you are in that stage of, you have just come out of young adult, you are getting into the adult life. Now, the person you have already been in the young adult, now that is the person you become as an adult. So, in the adult life, now you are, how old are you now?
27.
27. Now you are getting into adult life. So, as an adult, you'll find yourself, if you were in the rebellious category, those things continues. There's the alcohol, there's a lot of sexual stuff, there's a lot of violence and anger, and a lot of defiance, a lot of all those things. They now become the adult person that you're meeting. The performer also becomes the same, and it becomes a little bit heightened because you can become now a perfectionist. So you have very high standards, and you begin to demand the same standards. If you have a girlfriend, you're demanding the same standards. If you have children, you begin to demand the same high standards. You become a workaholic. The performers become workaholics. They become emotionally distant. They just want to excel and excel and excel and excel. A majority of them become career people. They become career people. And they just want to grow in their career, one degree after the other, this course, that promotion, just scaling, the corporate radar. Or if they are in business, they just want to continue growing and excelling and excelling and excelling. That is what gives them fulfillment. But in this other social life, they fail a lot. So majority of them, their marriages fail because they are not emotionally present. Yeah, they now begin to get into the category of busy parents, because they are working. And maybe they started masking their pain of abandonment because their parents were not present. And they became performers. Now, as adults, they are also becoming absent. So now it's like a full cycle now.
Yeah.
So the same thing that made them become performers is the same thing they are subjecting the children to. So the children will also begin to deal with the same pain this person was dealing with. Now that can be a cycle that gets passed on from one generation
To another.
The same thing with the victims, the same thing with the rebellious people. That happens a lot. So to stop this cycle from moving forward is to get healed. Yeah, and that's why we are here. So that we can stop that. So that by the time you get married and you have children, you will not get them into the cycle of pain that you have lived with. Yeah. So now, I want to give you time now to tell me, from childhood, who did you become?
From the age of 3.
Mm-hmm.
I was rebelling
Mm-hmm.
when I was a teenager.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yep.
I was rebelling, but still trying to perform. Yeah.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I was addicted to the internet.
Addiction to internet.
Yeah. But I was still doing very good.
So meaning the teenager here,
I was rebellious, very rebellious. I
Rebellious.
would talk back. I would be vulgar. I would cuss a lot. I would do those things. Yeah.
But you would still perform.
I would still perform. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
did I mention to you that I was bullied in high school?
now
I was terribly.
you are bullied. So why was the bullying happening?
I don't know. They just chose me.
Were you little, like
No.
physically small?
I don't know. I was just. I don't know. I can't really point my finger into it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know why they would do that. Yeah.
So just for the sake of the person who would be watching,
Yeah.
out of the categories of pains that we have mentioned, your category is abandonment.
Yeah, sure.
So you were abandoned at the age of 6 months. Your mom left.
Yeah.
And you grew up now knowing your grandmother as your mother.
Yeah.
And your grandfather is your father.
Actually, he passed on a long time when I was 2 years old.
Oh, so you didn't even grow up with a father figure.
I didn't even get to know him properly.
Yeah. So in your life, you didn't have a father figure at all.
Yep.
And how were your uncles at that time? Did they kind of get involved in your life at all?
They will get involved in my life because there was some money involved.
Oh.
Not because of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
At what point did you get to know that? Because as a child, you wouldn't have known.
As a child, I wouldn't know, but ever since my grandma died, there was a whole debate of who should take me next. Like, I went with my auntie, but my uncles were very angry because they knew there would be some
money being sent by your mom.
Yeah.
Okay. So how old were you when your grandma passed away?
I was in class 5. I can't remember the age.
That's about 11 years.
Yeah, 11 years.
So now, from childhood all the way to around 11 years, the person who was there consistently was your grandma.
Yeah.
So now, your mom would send money to your grandmother to take care of you.
Yeah.
So would you say she did a good work?
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you felt protected, you felt taken care of,
Yeah.
but you needed your mother.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. She would call me at times, and the only question I would ask her, unakuja lini? And then I don't speak at all. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so how did that make you feel? Anytime you would wait, she doesn't come. Did she ever give you a promise that I'll come this time, and she didn't?
Yeah, so many times, all the time.
Oh, okay. So how did that make you feel?
Terrible, angry, unloved, uncared for, all those things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And did you have other children who you were relating with closely, who had moms and dads?
Sorry, like from my cousins.
Even in the village.
Yeah. They were kids.
They were kids
Yeah.
who had families.
Yeah.
So would you ever visit their families?
Yeah, I will visit their families, but as I said, I would like to hide a lot. I wouldn't even play. I wouldn't even watch TV with them. I would just nakaa dakika kidogo and then I leave.
You leave.
Yeah.
Could it be it's because you felt like they have something you don't have?
Yeah, obviously. The fact that they were calling their mom, their dad, I had none. Yep.
Yeah, so maybe that's why you kept feeling I'm different.
Acha niende tu, yeah.
I needed to
Yeah.
live my lonely life. Yeah, that's what happens. So it is also possible to have some kind of shame. It is possible to have some kind of shame,
Yeah.
but shame begins to come later. It begins to come in teenage. Because I remember having a case with a teenage boy who didn't want the grandmother to go visit him in high school.
There's something like that in my life as well.
Huh?
There's something like that in my life as well.
Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
So I went to boarding school pretty early, in class 4.
Oh, class 4 boarding school.
Yep.
That's another type of abandonment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Class 4. So can you imagine all the people in that school? Okay, it was a good school. Yeah.
Yeah, because your mom could afford.
Yeah, I could afford it. Yeah. It was a good school. All the kids were being taken with cars, everything. Mimi nilikuwa napelekwa na bike.
All right. I'm not laughing at you,
I know,
but
I
it's
know, I know.
lovable.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
that,
how did that make...
made me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You didn't want... Opening day was not a good thing for you.
At a closing day, they will just see a bike and say, "Hey, come on, umekujiwa."
Umekujiwa.
So that's another
Oh
thing.
my goodness.
Yep.
Why couldn't they give you a ride in their parents' cars? I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So that was a shameful thing.
Very, very much shameful.
Yeah, can imagine that. Yeah. So what did you do to mask it? What did you do with that shame? Yeah.
Just read a lot.
Read a lot.
Yeah.
So you became a bookworm.
Yeah. I would perform pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least I would feel nice about myself.
Yes.
Even if nakujiwa na bike, you know.
At least I was better than you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you umekujiwa na this vehicle.
But me, I got 400
I got 400 marks.
Yeah.
And nakujiwa na bike. So that made you feel okay.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So then it simply means then from that point you became a performer.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So and you passed your exams well?
Pretty well, yeah.
Very well. You went to high school, passed very well.
Uni.
Went to university. And then you enrolled in?
Microbiology.
Microbiology.
Yep.
Yeah. So at this time when you're in the university now, because you're not at home, your grandma has already passed on.
Yeah.
And your uncles wanted now to be the ones like legal guardians over here. And you feel like, yeah, it's because there was some money involved, not because they cared for me. So how did that look like when you are now able to understand that this is why they want me to stay here, they don't want me to stay with my auntie?
It's very disappointing. Yeah.
Why?
Because I thought like they loved me, but they cared only for the money. Yeah. And not me, my well-being, no. No.
Yeah. So did you experience anything that made you feel they didn't care about you? Anything that made you come up to that conclusion?
Maybe after uni.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I would.
When the money stopped?
Yeah, when the money stopped flowing.
Yeah.
Even the small things they used to do.
They stopped.
Yeah, they stopped. So the money was the
motivator.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So then there's a feeling of loneliness that maybe has been there all through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you do to deal with that?
Loneliness. Loneliness. I would watch movies. Yeah. A lot.
Yeah. So the performer thing we mentioned.
Yeah.
Television.
Yeah.
Internet.
I will binge watch on a series like on a single day. I will just stay there watching. Maybe pause to eat, do 1, 2, 3, but still watch. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you ever get into anything like smoking weed? You did.
Yeah.
Because when you said weed, I was like, yes, he knows it. At what age? What season? Teenage
22
or?
years old.
Okay, as a young adult.
Yeah, as a young adult.
So that is what happens. Yeah. When you go to university, you go to college, because there is a lot of time in your hands and you don't have to do so much, and you're very good in what you do in terms of academics, to kill the boredom, watching movies, pornography, smoking weed, getting into some funny relationships that don't, last, that don't work. And then before you know it, you experience failure. So when did you experience failure in your life, if you have? Because it
in
does.
2017.
2017.
Yep.
So what happened in 2017?
In 2017, I was in fourth year university.
Fourth year university. Okay.
But I had some retakes, so I didn't like it, so I dropped out of school.
So meaning you failed.
Yeah.
You failed some units.
Yeah, I failed some units. I didn't like it, so and I was starting doing music. You see, I was escaping to music as well. So
Okay.
when I failed in uni, I dropped out. Yeah.
Oh, dropped out.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have finally gotten to the full cycle, because now you're just right that point, young adult, you have experienced your very first failure in your life first. And what has happened? Dropped out, fourth year
Dropped out, yeah.
university.
Yeah.
All right. So now that is the full cycle of when you start your life as a child with the pains that I mentioned. You come into your teenage, you try to mask it, you get into your young adult with that particular identity, and those are the things that happen. So we have a performer here. So the healing that I'm going to take him through is that one that is meant for a performer, somebody who became a performer because of their pain. So when we come back, we will start from that point where he dropped out of university because of his pain. We want to see how he managed that, because many performers, they don't know what to do with pain. So let's take a break and then we come back and continue from there. Welcome back. We are once again with my client, Peter Kamau. We stopped at a point where we finished now diagnosing the problem, and we have discovered that the problem was abandonment. He was abandoned at 6 months of age, and the mother left. So your mom went to Britain?
Yeah, Britain.
She went to Britain.
Yeah.
So it's not that the mom went somewhere that she would come over the weekend. No, she went. She went completely. And Kamau grew up now in the hands of the grandmother. And then the grandmother died when Kamau was 11 years. So then from that time, I believe the feeling was, I'm alone.
Yep.
Yeah. So Kamau became a performer, masking his pain through performance. He did it very well. Went to boarding school in class 4, that is the age of 10.
Yeah.
That was another kind of abandonment. I don't know why many parents don't see it this way, but it is real. And maybe you can tell any parent who is watching how it felt for you now to be in boarding school at the age of 10. How did that feel?
It was a terrible feeling. Yeah, of neglect.
Neglect, yeah.
Yeah, like nobody cares for you.
Yeah. So the feeling
of neglect.
Like there was neglect.
Yeah.
Let me write it here, because So there was the aspect of neglect, and the other aspect I had recorded earlier was that because Kamau was taken to a very good boarding school, because the mother is in Britain, so she's making some good money. So she wanted the son to be in a good school, but the son is being raised by a grandmother. So when the other children are being dropped in school in good cars, he used to be dropped in a bike. So the other boys used to know when they see the bike, they would call him, "Kama, umekujiwa." And to him, it was shameful. I mean, so there was shame factor there. There was the neglect aspect. There is the abandonment issues that are already going on. That was a lot.
Yep.
And this is when you are creating an identity, when it matters the most as a teenager. Those are the things that were happening. But you masked all that with performance. So you made sure that those who are being picked in big cars won't beat you in class, so that you compensate for not being like them by being better than them academically. Yeah. So that is how you masked your pain. So that pain needs to leave, because now you have already formed that kind of a character of somebody who masks pain. And we'll begin to see now how else you started masking your pain. So when you went to university doing microbiology, and the things that I said earlier, they followed you, because now you are alone there and you're feeling lonely even in life, because you don't have a sibling, you don't have a brother, you don't have a sister, you don't know your dad, you've never even heard of him, your mom is gone, your grandmother is gone. You have started discovering your uncles are not taking care of you because they love you. It is because of the kind of monetary benefit that comes with it. So already you began to feel, I'm alone. I'm alone in this world. So now in university, because now you're in your own space, you're not in their space, now you got into the things we mentioned, a lot of television, internet, and so on. And then you failed in some units. And that is the first time you experienced failure.
Yep.
So what did you try to do to mask the pain of failure?
Do more drugs.
So you started smoking weed.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned something like music.
Yeah, music. I was escaping in music.
So your escape now started going to the direction of music.
Yeah, the performing aspect went to music.
To music now, yeah. So because you felt like, okay, it's like now I'm not performing academically, now I've got to look for somewhere else where I can perform, because performance is your thing. So music came out as one of those things that you can now begin to perform. So how did that go?
It went pretty well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So much recognition.
So you got recognition.
Yeah, radio plays.
Yeah.
So
So your music was being played in the radios.
Yep.
Locally.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that was good. So you felt now you're back, but you dropped out of university.
Yeah. So like after my music was doing well, depression kicked in because I needed my degree as well, and I don't have it. Yeah. So even the music came crumbling down. Yep.
So then you resorted into now smoking weed.
Yeah, smoking, drinking. Yep.
Did you do any kind of drugs
other than
smoking weed?
Pills.
Okay.
Yep.
So now all those things now started coming together. You're trying to escape now this pain of failure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Did it help?
Temporarily, yeah, but in the long run, it didn't make sense. Yeah, even I tried to commit suicide because of failing, because nothing makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly what I had mentioned in the introduction.
Yeah.
That many of the young adults who are performers, if they mix all those things together and failure is still kicking in and they don't know how to get out, a majority of them will commit suicide. Yeah. So you thought about it or you attempted?
Attempted.
You attempted suicide. All right. Yeah, because of the pain. Yeah. And that pain is still there even today.
Yeah.
It has never come out. Yeah. So I want that pain to come out today.
Okay.
So that you can now start living your life, because you don't have to perform anymore. You can live life without performing. The life that normal people live is such that you don't have to do in order to be. In other words, your value is not in what you do. Your value is just in who you are. So that is how life is supposed to be. So anytime you find yourself having to do in order to feel like something, that is called performance. And it's not the natural way of living life. It becomes at most very difficult and tiring. Yeah. Because you're always upbeat, just trying to perform, excel, do, because without the doing, you don't feel like you are. It's very tiring. Yeah. So then what happened after that? After the music now crumbled, you attempted suicide.
Yeah.
Did somebody find you?
Somebody tried to talk to me, and they advised me to go back to school, and I did, and I finished. Yeah. So but the pain still is there.
Yeah. So when you tried to commit suicide, why didn't it succeed?
I don't know. I prayed to God. I made a prayer before I did it, and then I told him if he wants me to live, let me live, and then I did live.
So you took the pills or what? Or is it an overdose or what?
I took the pills and I tried twice actually. The first time was pills overdose. It affected my eyes for some time, but I didn't die.
You didn't die.
The other one was hanging myself. Luckily at that moment when I had planned it, somebody was there, and they talked me out of it.
Yeah. So you really wanted out.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now, when you discovered you are not dying, what did you do? You decided to live.
I started to appreciate life. I started to be more godly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So being more godly is like you started praying, appreciating God, appreciating life.
Avoiding the immoral things I was doing. Yeah.
Okay. And then somebody talked you into going back to school.
Yeah.
And you went back.
Yeah. He actually held my hand and took me back to university. Yeah.
A relative or a friend?
Just a villager.
A villager?
Yep.
Wow. Just somebody who looked at you and they were like, no, we can't allow this boy to go to waste. Wow. Okay. So then you went back and you purposed.
Yeah, and everything went just fine.
So the performer kicked in.
Yeah.
And you did well.
Yeah, I did well. I graduated.
And you graduated.
Yeah.
All right. So when was that? When did you graduate?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So now
I dropped out in 2017. I stayed out like 2 years. I went back in 2019 because it was only 1 year. I graduated in 2020. Yeah.
All right. So now from 2020, you have been out here now.
Yeah.
Doing what?
Hustling.
Hustling.
Here and there. Yeah.
You haven't gotten a job with this degree of
No.
microbiology.
I've tried to. I've sent so many applications, but I'm hopeful. I'm waiting.
You're still waiting. Yeah. So hustling in the village, how does that look like?
It's very bad.
It's boring.
It's actually very bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned to me about how your music had taken you up. So tell me a little bit about that, because some people, specifically young people, they think life is about being known, being popular, and when you are doing your music, you said recognition, airplay in terms of your music,
Yeah.
How was that? How was that?
As in how it made me feel, or
Yeah. How was it?
it
What did
was
you
it
go
was
through?
overwhelming. Yeah.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, it was nice because I would feel nice about myself. Yeah. People would recognize me. They will subscribe to my YouTube. They will do all those things. They will like my pictures. They will do all those things.
What
Yeah.
kind of music were you doing?
Hip hop.
Hip hop.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you had a YouTube channel
Yep.
and you had some followers. Many or just a few?
Many.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like how many?
Okay, let's talk about the views.
The views.
Yeah, the subscribers were not that many, but the views they were almost 500k views.
500,000.
Yeah.
Wow. So that made you feel like,
Yeah, I was happy about myself.
good.
Yeah.
So what were you doing at that time? Were you making some money?
Not really. I was just trying to push my name
Okay.
to get out there. Yeah.
All right. Okay. But it didn't give you fulfillment. Yeah. So meaning even being recognized and so on and so forth, still
As long as you're still hurting, it doesn't make sense.
the pain is still there.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You mentioned something to me about visiting your mom. Let me hear. What happened when you visited?
That was way back in 2015.
2015.
Yeah. I went there. Yeah, I went there to see my family, per se. So my mom has a husband now, a stepdad, and I have a step sister and a step brother. So I get to meet them. Yeah.
So how did that go?
It went nice. Yeah.
So you were able to reconnect with your mom?
Not really. I will just the normal things, the normal talks. There was nothing heightened. There was just normal things. Yeah.
Did it help you feel any better or?
No.
Okay. When is the first time you met your mom?
Around 2013.
How old were you?
17.
That was the first time you saw your mom?
Yeah.
Before then you just used to see
pictures. Yeah.
And
phone
then
calls.
phone calls.
Yeah.
So how was that?
It was nice. Yeah, and bad.
So it was both good and bad?
Yeah.
So let me hear the good.
The good is I got to see where I came from. Yeah, my mom. And the bad is there are so many questions I had unanswered.
She didn't answer them?
No.
Wow. Okay. So it left you with more questions than answers even.
Yeah.
So when you went to visit her now in Britain, did she answer any of the questions or you didn't even ask?
I tried to ask, she tried to explain, but it would make no sense.
It didn't make sense?
Yeah.
Because you had already been wounded?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is no amount of explanation that can help you out of your pain? None. So the healing that we are looking for, only God can do. Only God can heal you. She can try to explain it, but you can't explain away pain. Pain requires healing. Yeah. Pain requires healing. So when you went to Britain, did you do anything else for yourself over there?
I did hustle. I did work.
You worked for like how long?
I worked for a couple of months, like 2 months. I made some good money. I came back with them, the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that the money you now use to do your music?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what were you offering your followers in music?
In terms of?
What were you giving them? The motivation, the message? Was it positive?
It was
Or was it negative?
Negative. Rage.
Rage. Extreme
cursing,
anger.
Yeah, cursing so much. Perversions.
Yeah. Because that is what was in there. You know, you cannot give the world what you don't have. You can only give the world what you have. And what you had was anger,
all negative things. Yeah.
All those negative things. Yeah, exactly. So, is there anything that you did that you would regret during that time?
In UK or here?
Wherever. That time when you were doing things for yourself and you're feeling good about yourself, is there anything that you would say?
I got involved in satanism or such kind of stuff. Yeah.
Satanism through music?
Yeah, through music, and I will tend to lean more on the dark side than the yeah.
Why was that? Why was the dark side more attractive to you? Is it because you had been angry with God, disappointed with God, or
disappointed? Not angry, disappointed.
Disappointed.
Yeah.
So, what came to your mind when you started leaning on the dark side? And I would want you to tell me a little bit about what you did on the dark side.
It would help. Okay, it would help me get over some anxieties. Yeah.
Because I've had some people tell me that, I looked at all the pain I was going through and I concluded God is not strong.
Yeah. Such things happen to me. Yeah.
So they decided, let me try this other side. Maybe Satan is stronger than God.
No, never came to that point.
Oh, you didn't get to that point.
Yeah, but I knew he was okay. He was created by God. He's the opposite side of things, but he can still do things, but they don't last. You see.
So you knew.
Okay, God.
You knew that even then.
Yeah, I knew that, but I was looking for that conditional love from that side, other than seek for unconditional love from God.
From God.
Yeah.
And you could get it.
The conditional love, I will make good music. It will do very good. But with these things, even a hit song can just last for a few months, and then it's no longer a hit song. So that's conditional.
Yeah. So is there anything you would do to get that kind of a song to hit in the dark?
Yeah, so many things. Yeah.
So when you see a hit song in the secular world, it is not simply because the artist is very good.
Nope.
It could be because there is something else they're doing, some spiritual stuff.
It is always the truth. They're doing some things. Yeah.
Okay. So if you are to talk to a young person who is aspiring to be popular in the artist, in this art thing, basically music, because that's where many of the young people want to get into, what would you caution them about?
I will tell them to be more careful with who they deal with, and be careful on the kind of music they listen to, because if you listen to negative music, you get inspired negatively. Like me, I used to listen to a lot of raw hip hop. You see. And I was inspired by that. Yeah, and it got me into trouble. Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you can remember doing? Not because you want people to do them, but just to mention.
Spelling.
What is that?
I used to cast a spell. I used to cast some spells. Yeah.
Casting spells, meaning what?
Like I will do some things on the. You see, if I was producing the songs myself. By the way, I was making the beats. I was recording myself. I was mastering myself, and then in the mastering process, that's where I will do the spell casting, so that the end product to be nice. Yeah, and then in the video, I will subliminally place
the spells.
Yeah, spells and things that are meant to capture somebody psychologically, even without their notice.
So what I'm hearing you say is that, for example, if an artist has a show, like a concert, and people are flooded in that place listening, there is a possibility that they can be captured without them knowing it or even wanting it.
Yeah, it happens.
Okay. And you find yourself following this particular artist and doing so much just to get to their show and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, people should be careful on the things they listen and watch. Yeah.
So you used to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
And your song will capture attention.
I used to watch so many dark shows, like television series. There's so many series even they are not even permitted to be aired on any TV. You just find them in the internet. They're so dark. Yeah, I used to watch those kind of things.
Yeah. So that is where you are training yourself to cast spells.
Yeah.
Okay. And it worked for you.
Temporarily, yeah.
Yeah. I like that word, temporarily.
Yeah.
Because that is the thing. Anything that is not of God is temporal. Yeah. You can try to run away from your pain, but it is temporal.
Yeah.
But when God comes in to heal you, it is permanent. So now, we are just about to get into now the healing aspect. Let me explain to you how the process looks like. Number one is that for you to be healed, forgiveness is necessary.
Okay.
So, meaning, when I take you through the process of healing, we will need to get you to forgive several people.
Okay.
And forgiveness is not easy.
Yeah.
But it is possible. Because forgiveness is the key to our healing. So the first person you will have to forgive who has not been there in your life is your dad. So because you didn't come from nowhere, he's somewhere, but he chose not to be present. Yeah. So you will need to forgive him. And it can be very difficult, it can be painful, but it is important because that pain has been in there regarding your father, needs to come out. The identity that you have been looking for, even with the things that you were doing, even becoming a performer, that identity should have been modeled to you by your father, but he wasn't there. The uncles who should have stepped in that place of your father, they also didn't model the kind of a father that God is to us, because that is the kind of fathers we're supposed to have. So we get our identity from the way we were fathered. So you were not fathered.
Yep.
So you had to struggle to get an identity. And that struggle is still there even today. Yeah. So when you forgive your father, you release him from blame. You're like saying, Dad, you owe me nothing. So, and I don't need you anymore to model anything because you have failed. You have totally failed. You abandoned me. You left me. So now I don't need you. Now I need God. Because the only person who can step in the place of your father and do better than your own father is God. Yeah. So we will need to forgive your father.
Okay.
We will also need to forgive your mom. Her responsibility was to nurture you, but she didn't. So the love that a mother gives a child, you didn't get it. Even if your grandmother raised you and she did everything she could, you were not her child. So there is a connection that you missed from 6 months old. So you can imagine you had connected with your mom right from the womb, and then at the age of 6, gone. So that connection, it is very possible if your grandmother was alive, it is very possible that you cried your heart out before you got used to staying without your mom. Yeah. And that feeling of abandonment has been there. It sunk in there. And that is why even when you met her, you couldn't connect. Even when you went to Britain, you couldn't connect. Because the disconnection happened when you were 6 months old. And you don't need that connection now. You don't need it anymore. So for you to get healed, you will need to forgive her, release her, let go of all that. So that now you start getting the affection, the passion that you're looking for, the nurture that you're looking for from another source and not from your mom, because she's not there. So you have to let go of that. It is a difficult thing to release and let go and say to yourself, I don't need it. Because we all need it. So when you forgive, it's like that ground is cleared. And those enemies who have encroached that space, they are kicked out. So you begin to feel a release in your own life. Secondly, we forgive because we want to set ourselves free. Yeah, we want to set ourselves free. And forgiveness is like carrying a bag on your back. Like the bag you were carrying when you came in here. Even if it had just a bottle of water and you carry it the whole day,
You'll get tired.
You get tired. It begins to feel heavier the more you carry it. So, for how long have you carried your mom?
27.
27 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you wonder why you're stooping. It's the weight on your back. You've carried your mom, you've carried your dad, you've carried your uncles, you've carried your aunties, you have carried your bullies, you've carried people who have hurt you along the way. So your bag is getting full by every single day. So when you're carrying somebody on your back, even if you wanted to run, you can't. The music you were doing is still within you. You can still do it. So why isn't it happening? You see? You're stuck, not because you don't have the potential, but because you are wounded. Okay. Even if you got a job today, because you have a degree in microbiology, if you get a job today, if this pain is not dealt with, you might find yourself even losing the job. Yeah. Because there is a way you will start behaving and relating with people, probably even like drinking, and maybe you go back and start smoking. Because even if you get a job and you're making good money and the pain is still there, the things that you use to mask the pain, you will find yourself doing it. You will use them. If it is smoking weed, you will find yourself smoking weed. If it is drinking, you will find yourself drinking. And this time, you'll be drinking and you're employed. Or you'll be smoking weed because you got your salary and you are employed. And you might end up losing your job. And when you lose your job, this is the second time that you will have faced failure. And that can even take you now to the drain completely, to an extent you're unable even to rise up. And I'm sure you have experienced a few more failures, you know, especially in relationships and stuff like that. We will look at that because those are other pockets of pain that need to be healed. So when you forgive, you set yourself free. And this is a freedom that you really, really need. Yeah. So you remove that weight and you go free. So that is the second reason. And it's a good reason for you to forgive, whoever it is. The third reason why we forgive is so that we can be healed. Right now you need healing on the inside. Some people, when they forgive, they even get healed physically. Physical illnesses like ulcers, migraines. People have chest problems, mental conditions, emotional disorders. People forgive and they get healed physically. Yeah. For you, it is an emotional healing. You need healing on the inside. But if there was a physical condition that has been caused by pain that is emotional, that condition can also get healed when you forgive. Spiritually, you need to be healed because those pains on the inside, they drive us away from God. Because you begin to question God. You know, it's like, God, why am I going through this? If you love me, why is this happening to me? So people get disappointed with God and they become spiritually dull. So when you forgive people, then you're spiritually healed and you begin to connect with God. So spiritual healing is something that you will receive. Another area of healing is even social, financial. You begin to integrate with people better because hurt people hurt others. You want to relate with people, but because you're hurting, you relate with them in a way that leaves them hurt. Financially, you're unable to move forward. You have capacity, you have potential, but you're unable to move forward because of the pain. So financially, you're stuck. So there are so many areas of your life that will get healed when you forgive. So we forgive so that you can get healed. And that is a healing that you really need. So you do not forgive for their sake. You first of all forgive for your own sake. And the fourth reason why we forgive is so that we can open that space for God to step in and avenge us. That you have gone through so much and you're asking, who will avenge me? Why am I the victim here? Why am I the one going through this pain? So when you forgive, it's like you have moved out of that space and you have allowed God to step in. When he comes in, he comes to avenge you. There are some things that you would have done by now, minus your pain, but now you're late. You know, it's like at 27, you could be at a certain level, but you're not there yet. So when God comes in to avenge you, he even begins to accelerate your pace. But the first person that God deals with squarely when he comes to avenge you is your arch enemy, and that is Satan. So your mom is not your enemy. Your dad is not your enemy. The influence of Satan in people's lives causes us pain. So the enemy that we must overcome is Satan. But he has wounded you for a very long time. He has mastered how to hurt you. So when God comes in to avenge you, that is the first one he conquers and defeats for you. So when he is defeated for you, because you have not been able to defeat him, you haven't. So when he defeats that enemy for you, everything else begins to flow. There are some things that he has been using against you that he can no longer use against you anymore. So you begin to find your life becoming easy. You begin to feel there's a lot of ease in your life. So the second thing that God does is he can release a conviction in the lives of people that you are forgiving. For example, your mom, because that is the first person that you have carried for a long time, and she means a lot to you. So God steps into that situation, and he might release a conviction on your mom that she begins to see you differently, she begins to interact with you differently, and she begins to treat you differently. Just like that. And she doesn't even know where the change of heart happened. How she doesn't know. And she's like, all of a sudden, she feels a responsibility in a particular way toward you. And because you have forgiven her, you're also feeling good towards her. So the next time you're talking, you're not crashing, you'll not hit each other. Minus the healing, when you begin to talk with your mom, she can already feel the way you're coming. You're coming loaded, ready to blow her. So what will she do?
Block me.
Block you. Yes. So when she blocks you, what do you feel?
More pain.
More pain because you feel rejected. Yeah. That abandoning me is enough. Now you're now blocking me from you're now rejecting me. But it is because of the way you are coming towards her. So when you forgive her, you have put all your weapons down. You're like, Mom, I have nothing against you anymore. So now the next time you're coming to talk with her, she's coming ready to block, and then she realizes there's nothing to defend herself from. So all of a sudden, she also puts her weapons down. And before you know it now, you begin to talk with a lot of ease. And finally, you begin to have the mother you've always wanted to have. That you can talk like mother and son. So those are things that God will do when you allow him to step in. So the only thing God is waiting for you to do is forgive. I don't know what would happen with your father. I don't know whether he knows whether you are there or not, but you will forgive him. It is a spiritual thing, so you can never know what happens. And then finally, when you forgive, you release your offender. So now this is what happens. When you're holding this person with anger, bitterness, resentment, and all that, the enemy knows that this thing is happening because it's a spiritual thing. So the person on the other end, it's like you have tied them You know, it's like you have held them hostage with these feelings and emotions. Let me give an example. If, for example, you know that you have hurt somebody,
Yeah.
and that person tells you, I will never forgive you, how does that make you feel?
Bad.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
You feel like you're imprisoned. And your greatest desire is, why can't she just forgive me? So you feel the weight of the person not forgiving you. So if the person comes and tells you, it's okay, I forgive you, how does that feel?
Nice.
Feels so good, relieved. So because it's a spiritual thing, it is a transaction that happens in the spiritual realm. When you forgive somebody, they feel freed, they feel released. So the fact that they have been released, they can no longer hurt you. They were hurting you because they were feeling tied up, they were feeling held, they were feeling like they are captives. And the energy and the power that you have been using to hold these people captive is not godly. It is satanic power.
Yep.
So it's almost that you're manipulating them with your anger, with your resentment and all that. So because that is what is happening and it is a demonic thing, then the enemy raises rage and anger and justification from the other side. So you are here tying them with this anger and resentment. On the other side, the enemy also raises this other person. So anytime you meet, it's like two bulls, you crash. So when you forgive them, you release them from that. Yeah. Because so long as you're holding them hostage, they feel it. And the enemy equips them also to protect themselves from feeling hostage. So like now, for example, your mom, she might justify everything she has done. Why? Because you have accused her. You're angry with her. So instead of accepting and apologizing, she will justify herself. And that hurts even more. So when you forgive her, you release her from the need to justify herself. There are times she might want to come to talk to you, but she's ready also to be angry. So that when you begin to get angry, she gets angrier than you. So when you forgive her, you release her from that anger. So when you release somebody by forgiving them, it's like you're doing it for yourself, because this person will no longer hurt you. When they are tied in that space by all those negative emotions and demonic stuff, they are likely to hurt you. They are likely to hurt you.
Okay.
Are you getting it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They are likely to hurt you. But when you forgive them, you release them, it's like you have freed them from that space where they have been locked by the enemy. So they cannot be used to hurt you. Let me give an example that I give when I'm doing marriage counseling. That a wife is very angry with the husband because he cheated on her. And I tell them, forgive him so that he doesn't have to justify himself. And when he justifies himself, it makes you feel even more angry with him. So when you forgive him, he will not feel the need even to lie to you. So I tell them, forgive him so that you release him from lying, set him free from justifying, set him free from some kind of anger that he may come with the intention of, if I show this kind of anger whenever she talks about this, she'll not talk about it anymore. So you forgive him, and all of a sudden, he doesn't have to get angry anymore. So you will need to forgive them. Yeah. Yeah. So that now, the next time you meet with them, you may not know what God can do. You might forgive them, and all of a sudden, their hearts turn to you. And they begin to realize how much they have neglected you. Because right now, your mom is not there, your grandma is not there. So you're living alone.
Yeah.
And you don't have a job. If you can't make money, where will you get food?
Just like that, or just, I don't know, friends.
Wow.
Or relatives, I don't know. There are very few who are with me, but still this ridicule.
Mm.
Like mamako wako majuu na unateseka, uko na degree na unachuna avocado, you know, those kind of things. They're tormenting, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you will need to forgive them.
Yeah.
And you're ready for that. Good. All right. Okay. So when we come back, I will take Kamau through now the process of healing. We will start by talking to God about all those issues. It's called pouring out your complaint, pouring out your fear, pouring out your frustration. I will lead her into that. We will tell God all the story that Kamau has told me. Not because God doesn't know, but God wants when we acknowledge that we are hurting. So we will tell God that. And then after that, we will ask God to give him the grace to forgive all those people, because the pain is real. And then we will go one by one, forgiving each one of them. We will ask God to forgive him for things that he did during that time when he was hurting. We make mistakes as a result of our pain. We do things that we shouldn't do because of the pain. So this is always a good moment to go back to God and just tell God, forgive me for things that I did wrong when I was going through pain. And then finally, we will talk to the individuals. I'll take him through that. I will use my own words, and then I will allow him to start, putting his own words into the conversation with the mom, owning it up, conversation with the dad, uncles, aunties, and then finally we will forgive them and ask God to step in now and heal him. Now when God steps in to heal, it is permanent. So we'll begin from childhood, we will go to teenage, we'll go to the young adult, and finally we will finish with healing any pain that is going through currently as an adult. So when we come back,